So before I actually record the episode, I want to go ahead and do a little bit of housework before I do the intro and then give you the actual podcast. This podcast was supposed to be recorded on Monday for the Everyday Show. So I'm going to give you a double dosage. I'm going to do Monday's show, then just kind of go over what I'm going to talk about in that show, and then I'll do Tuesday's show as a separate show. But I wanted to go ahead and do this first as a separate intro to lead into the regular Everyday in August intro, and then I'll give you August show. But this is just that moment that I really want to sit and say thank you all for, if you've done any listening, any help, any feedback, anything small or anything major to help me with this podcast. Trust me, it's not unnoticed, and that's what I want to state or address before actually doing the recording. And I'm not gonna really give y'all too many details to bore y'all half to death. Let's just go ahead and get into the show. Hello, August. How are you? It's Past Podcast. We'll be recording every day for the month of August. Having to remember not to say April is an adjustment since I just did this a couple of months ago. But this is the past, or the Past Podcast. And we're podcasting each day in August. So check out the show. You might find something new. This was supposed to have been recorded last night, but the way life is set up, things just have their own plans. What is good? What is going on? We've been every single name possible, but after hitting the 100th episode and after getting images and identities and getting things flowing, you may see it in the actual images between iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, all of the social media sources. We are now solidified as the past, where it is the podcast about sports and stuff. What is good, y'all? It's BT, Brian, however y'all want to know it, call it, term it. I have really been pushing heavily and thoroughly on getting this show rolling because I really wanted to sit down and do this as a show. It was supposed to be done last night, and I'm not gonna lie, sleep was the winning formula. I had been up on sheer fumes since 8:30, well, 7-ish, and I'm not saying any of that as an excuse or trying to justify why there was no recording yesterday, because I could have easily recorded early that morning, but also trying to come up with a good topic to tie in since it was the 100th episode. And I really didn't have much of anything, so I was able to kind of put my brain to the test, see what I can come up with, and eventually I did get a decent show to talk about. So before I get into what we'll be talking about on today's show, first and foremost, what would have been Monday's show, because I did put a little intro. It's a little intro that you know the intro is a little different than usual. As always, episodes are uploaded and recorded to Spreaker.com, and I do these shows. That's been kind of my home for housing these podcasts. Never would have expected it, but we'll talk about that as well. And of course, recordings wouldn't go unnoticed or wouldn't be loaded as beautiful as they are. They wouldn't be as thorough, and I wouldn't have been really pushing like I have without using the Blue Yeti microphone. So I really, this episode is probably gonna be a thank you and a like, wow, where have we gone, or how have we gotten to this point? Because there are 100 episodes, or this will be episode 100 that's uploaded to iTunes and to the social or podcast outlets. There were some episodes that were loaded and that I did record before these. Those are what I'm defining as the Lost Files. Some of them I was kind of able to find through YouTube and other sources, but I don't have those actual core links, and I do apologize for that. I have been trying to see if I could go back and get into like that, I guess you can call it that archive eye, and see if they may show up somewhere. They might be hidden in traffic. I don't know. Insider, if any of y'all may not know that reference. But regardless, they're out there. And we, eventually did get the iTunes flow going. And it was kind of a huge, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, when the iTunes, and I'll share this because a lot of my friends who are now prospecting or have kind of broken into the podcast community, one of the biggest things that they're emphatic on or pressing for is, I want my podcast on iTunes. I want it where you can subscribe to it on iTunes. Okay, I can dig it. I can go with that. I got no disagreement, no argument, nothing, no knock against any of that component, not one bit. So I know for me, and this is kind of like that backstory of a backstory, because I've given this story a little bit as to like what got me into podcasting, but this is kind of like that leading into the starting at episode 1 that officially loaded on iTunes. And it was kind of like, if I remember, I don't have the listing in front of me, but I think it was literally titled Podcasting from a Different Locale or something of that sort. Because before that had happened, I believe I got the email or the announcement that my podcasts were available to be uploaded. And I was I was recording episodes, keeping them all kind of stored up, and I literally sent the email. I'm sorry. Let me be more transparent, because I believe there actually is the title of the episode. So I'm kind of gonna do a little bit of ADD, which I normally don't do. I usually don't look up actual stories like this on my phone, on my computer, but this is an exception. And so far, since I've been running the show, the way I've been doing it, it's worked out. So it's kind of almost, unless something drastic happens, we should be good recording level wise. So, and I'm gonna make sure, because I do need to update some information, and I'll get all that adjusted and modified accordingly, because it does say past podcast. I'm gonna adjust that as well. Or it's weird, it's like it says past podcast, but when you go to the actual iTunes link, it says the past, which is what we're going with now. So let me see if I have these loaded or how they're viewed. All right. So, coincidence. First episodes that I was recording, and this is the evolution of, and I'm sorry, normally I would have had this already prepped and ready, and y'all would have already known what time it was, but things happen. Life is just the way it is. So I started doing my first few episodes, and just started getting into it, recording different shows here and there. And each week the shows were flowing pretty well, and I kind of let them do what they did, and it was all well and good. And literally it was just kind of talking about different sports. I can recall the first episode that is loaded on the iTunes page strictly because, like I said, I did it at a friend of mine's house. There were these whole groups of topics that we were going to get into. We hardly didn't talk about any of them because it was mainly just that moment of, Ben Simmons just got Ben Simmons is about to be drafted. Let's talk about, we were going to talk about the Ben Simmons draft. We were going to talk about other things at that time, about grieving, losing family members, things of that sort. And we literally chalked it up about talking about whether the Bulls team was the best team of all time, or whether the Warriors team was a better team. And it was, I think the Warriors were in pursuit of chasing their dream of getting the actual getting those getting those wins. But that was a year when they ended up not winning the championship. So it was an ironic circumstance. So you fast forward a little bit, and it was, I think, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 episodes in, wasn't on iTunes. Just kind of throwing shows out there, getting the message to the masses, letting people know this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on. Consumed a lot of time talking about the NBA Finals, things of that nature. And then the first episode officially went up for the made it to iTunes. It didn't really gas me up and have me change the format too heavily. I will admit this, however, when I did get into the iTunes flow, I started to kind of learn how iTunes, what helps your podcast get the traffic that it does. In the midst of those first 10 stories, Prince had passed, and that, like I said, that's been over a year ago. And I'll be the first to admit, and I mean, if you look at the dates, so you could kind of see, and I tell this to people all the time, and this is what I was wrong about doing, and it took me learning this as to why I share it with others who are doing podcasting. And like I said, if you put in past podcasts and put in my first name, you will see the date flow of episodes, where it was the 25th, the 2nd, like it was March 25th, April 2nd, April 10th, April 15th, April 22nd, May 1st, May 19th, 26th. I was never on a consistent schedule with my episodes. And it took me recording enough, and I think what kind of changed things for me was the new year. And I've told this story to a lot of, I think I mentioned this kind of briefly when we were doing podcasts every day in April, and I'll address it now to give you all an awareness of what kind of gave the wake up change. When the new year started, before the new year started, it transitioned into, okay, we're going to be recording, and I'm going to do stories about the NFL. I'm going to do my research, learn about what's going on, things of that nature, and just kind of roll with it. Most weeks, I was consistent. I did my thing. I got into it. I literally podcasted for almost a month. I mean, I literally did not podcast for over a month, because I won't say that. I truly think what hit me was, it wasn't that I was pod fading, it was that I was I was burned out doing the podcast, because I wasn't doing a consistent flow. So what kind of caused things to change up a little bit was, I would do, I would still throw some wild episodes in, and I call those the non-weekly episodes, but I still made sure my weekly episode was my baby, and that was my attention. And so I did those recordings going into the new year for this year. And I did, I would record each week. And on Saturdays, I literally did something that I probably would have never done before. And that was, all right, let me start off a little simple and just record weekly episodes from the library. So each week, I would reserve a room at the library, and I was getting different places to kind of start, figuring out where to go and how to get it all set up and how to get it going. And it worked out pretty well. I got through the process, I was able to do some recruiting, and I recruited a phenomenal co-host. He's, I've talked to him about it numerous times. Without him, a lot of my shows would be good, but they wouldn't be as great. And I even said this to him, and I'll tell y'all this now. When we recorded this past Saturday, the episode was, as you all probably had heard, it was about 2 hours long. But there was a lot of sports content that we hadn't caught up and talked about. Truth be told, if he had not recorded with me and I recorded by myself, it probably would have been less than an hour. Because you're giving a voice, you're giving an opinion, but you don't have anybody to kind of bounce conversation with about certain things of that nature. And along the way, and I'll add this in as well, because this was something that you'll notice at a certain point, the length of shows kind of extended, because I was able to kind of finally use Logic. Right around St. Patrick's Day, they had a promotion. Well, before we go to the St. Patrick's promotion, we'll go to initial recordings. When first recording, I believe the episodes might have been about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, give or take. So what happens is when you're recording and you know you're limited to that window of recording, I was recording directly through Spreaker. So when you record on Spreaker, it's showing you this little message like, hey, you might want to wrap it up, because if you don't, you might end up not getting no feed. You might not get a show, XYZ. So I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to figure out what to do, because I really want to get this whole recording done. I want it gone, finished, whatever. So I would do recordings that way, and it would kind of crunch the show, which I wasn't too fond of. Fast forward a little bit, Spreaker updated their plans, where the basic plan that I had that was free, they knew a lot of people were learning that Spreaker was a very good platform starting out podcasting. So a lot of my friends who are starting now that got into their shows might be a little shocked in knowing that there was the option where you could have a free service, and it was 45 minutes, I believe, 5 hours worth of recording you could store. I'm not sure. I might be a little wrong, maybe a little off with the amount of time, but you would store your episodes, and that was it. That was all you had. So, fast forward, that same year, last year, I was able to upgrade my plan, got more storage space for shows. No problem, no big deal, because I think at that time you could store up to 10 hours, 45-minute episodes. And I mean, you look at, if you time that out and break down the numbers, it's not that bad, I recall. I have to look at the actual details for it to kind of see, because it's literally like recording to get a plan that works for you and for how you record. So the basic plan that I had, and I'm sorry, way off on my numbers, my sessions I could record were 45 minutes. And storage-wise, I had 100 hours, which wasn't bad. I mean, 100 hours is a lot to work with. I believe with the free version, you would still get the embedded player. Like if I wanted to load it onto iTunes, not on iTunes, on WordPress, on different pages to let people listen. Like if I wanted to save them and put them on my own personal page, I could have done that. The bigger challenge and the biggest adjustment was when it came to the RSS feeds. Like you really didn't have much control of like modifying or editing anything to that extent. But you were able to add those pieces in as time went along. So that kind of caused that to be the way it was. And then earlier this year in March, I went ahead and took the hit and went ahead and bought I upgraded the plan, and it's like I got a year promotional where I think I'm paying $10 a month for the broadcasting service. The broadcasting service in general is $20 a month, but I'm doing it for $10 for a year. And this is another thing, and I'm sharing this because I shared this when I talked about podcasting 101 tips on getting started. Always look for promotionals and look for deals, because you never know where a deal could be when it comes to podcasting or when it comes to equipment. My Blue Yeti microphone, I believe this microphone might be $110 or $120. It's a matter of where and how you shop for it. I was kind of preferable because when I wanted my mic, I was focused on knowing that I wanted a decent microphone. So I ended up going with the Blue Yeti, and I got the Blackout edition. So the Blackout on Amazon right now is $130. And GameStop, probably this deal is gone, because at the time when I found it, it was like I sniped this deal so fast. I don't know why I'm spelling blue, B-L-E. BLEU, like bleu. But yeah, the Blue Yeti from, yep, and they're the same. So they're matching Amazon's price. So the Blue Yeti on GameStop is $130. At the time when I bought this microphone, it was a flat $100. Jumped on it so fast, gone out. See y'all. Literally ordered it. Always, I always love talking about this. Bought the microphone. Couple of days, the day or two passed. The mic came in the mail. I had already prepared because I knew how it was gonna go. I bought a case. Hermit shell. If you are looking for something to store a product in and have it look the same condition as when you put it in the box, Hermit shell is the option or the go-to. That's what I use for my Bluetooth keyboard, and I use that for the Yeti. But I know that's like all sidebar stories, and I know I said I was gonna give thanks. So thanks first and foremost, like the obvious. Thanks to my family. They've been patient with me with doing this. Literally in the process of me podcasting, I've had to buy signs to kind of let it be known, hey, I'm recording. So, if you need something, send me a message. I'll see it that way and can kind of get back to you. But they've been very helpful in the process. Things are going to change with that, and I'll go into that soon. And the library that I've gone to record, they've been very helpful with me. When I first was recording there, it was, you kind of had to reserve a certain way, and you had to make sure that it was availability and stuff like that. Now it's if you if you reserve the room, they have what's called dibs. So you call dibs on a room, and I'm like, all right, cool, I can do dibs, and I was setting it up that way. My co-host, obviously, I'm definitely going. I definitely can't thank him enough. He's been, like I told him, I was like, you've been patient with me with everything, and he's been patient. I've been patient with him, and that's worked out in helping us get the show going. There's no 1A, 1A. Like, we both, it's a flow process of us doing it together. And even if he's not on the show, like when I record, I'm still, I'm giving my best effort, and I always give him, his acknowledgement, because it's, it's no show. It's a show with me by myself, but it's no show if I don't have him a lot of times. My friends who have been in quite a few episodes from time to time, they've been very supportive. They've been very, willing to do whatever they can do. I know I did, before going into that, I know I did mention to you all that I would do interviews, and I kind of backed out on that a little bit because, I don't know, I guess my podcast format is not really an interview-based format. And also, and someone addressed this, and I'll be the first to admit it, I'm not too huge or too big on asking the same old questions to people when it comes to, well, what made you get into what you're doing? And what are you it's almost like an interview. It's like an uncomfortable interview. An uncomfortable job interview, if that makes sense. Because the person's going to tell you, but depending on who, it's all in who and how I share it. I don't know. Just my random spiel. To my friend who does Loop That Bitch, her and Tooks, Gerald Tooks, or GT, sorry if I put names, and I believe he had it on the page anyway. But GT and Loop That Bitch, they helped me with, like, I was able to learn about the platform because of them, just by listening to Loop That Bitch weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 episodes a week, and that was kind of like what got me into the flow of learning what it was all about. Like, oh, this is kind of dope. Let me check it out and see what's good. So doing that helped out a lot, and then once I got into my podcasting flow of it, I realized it was a much different behemoth because you have a much different process and format that you're working on. So I thank them for that. Personally, I said friends, but Chris Rock's Photography, she did a lot of the photos. The past couple of months, I've been changing my photo, figuring out the image. Believe it or not, the image that you see on the iTunes page or on all the social media for past podcasts, That image is an image that she did. She does phenomenal work. That's my fam. She literally, anybody that's doing something worthwhile, especially local, I'm gonna support. Graphic wise, I've been kind of running solo, but I've been using Canva. Canva's been my go-to. I stopped using it for a while, but I probably will start doing it once I start queuing up episodes again. Planoly is something you want to use if you're really trying to get get uploads on social media to have a bit of a timely process. Those brands I wouldn't know about if it wasn't for ATLY. Ashley, hopefully everything's doing good. I have not, I know I'm probably like social media sniping, but I've been trying to, keep up, make sure you've been all right. And I know, like I said, life comes at you, and it either comes at you nice and slow, or nice, or hard with no care in the world. One of the two. There's usually not an in between when it comes to life. But I know she's been working on stuff, and I've kind of let her do her thing. Hopefully she'll come back and the podcast will be resurrected. There may be some changes going on behind the scenes that I may or may not be aware of, and that's understandable too. So just kind of letting her, and this is with anybody. You always want to just let people do what they do, and as I call it, let them be great. Just let them do what they're working on and working on themselves. One of my previous managers that I had, the emphasis that he presented, and this thanks to him with also what I've been doing and also with working with people at my employment, has helped me learn and realize the importance of branding. I didn't I knew and understood branding, but I didn't know the extent of branding until I really chewed into and got podcasting to where it is now, because I truly realized the importance of the legitimacy of trying to make sure that if you record at this time and you're sharing this information at this time, that everyone's ready for what you're about to share. So I've taken those things into account along the way, and it's been very helpful. So like I said, I have Ashley Taylor. Martine Ellis has been my most recent podcast plug, and resources and information that she's been providing has been exceptional. She's not even in the United States, and that's crazy. I've networked with her, networked with other people who are entrepreneurs or starting living their dream or doing the thing that they want to do. And I know for a lot of people, anyone who's listening to this, I want to say this, and this is going to kind of be my closeout, but also my way of helping you all out. And sorry, when I first started, I sounded groggy and I just woke up and life was over and I'm over it. But I was still trying to come together with whatever was going on. But I truly will say to everyone, thank you. Well, I'm sorry, before I give any thank yous, what I want to share is this. If there is something, why am I trying to close the podcast? What the hell? If you are trying to work on something, or there's something you're trying to share with other people, you may want to try to take time in doing it and see what happens. The reason I'm giving the motivation or giving the thoughts in that context is because we're scared. We as people are scared. I get it. I understand. I'm not arguing it. It's not up for debate. It's okay to be scared, or it's okay to be worried about a recording, or worried about a show, or worried about doing something and having it come out with a perfect format. But it's also okay to stumble. And I know, and I'm going to say this to a lot of my friends who have been doing podcasts and who've been doing stuff, and it may look like I'm being the perfectionist, or I'm trying to jump on them and say, hey, you got to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Not really. It's okay for you to have some stumbles and some mishaps. And what makes me remember my stumbles and mishaps personally is when I go back and listen to literally the first set of episodes that were I would say the first 20 to 25 episodes tells you how different my podcasting has been. Probably, I would say where my podcast changed, and I truly am a believer of this. Between me going to Podfest, going to MagFest, and that's another thing I'm looking to do. It's another that's one of my agenda goals that I would like to accomplish in the next year, is to attend an actual podcast event to listen to see, get input and advice from others. I know a lot of podcasters use mixers and all that, but I really want to just get tips on the marketing and the branding side to figure out what they're doing and what kind of gives you that edge, and learn from there. So take a chance. Take a risk. Like everyone who's doing their shows now, trust me, I'm seeing y'all grow. I may not sit and give a comment or give feedback to every single show or every single listen, but I also know that you have to kind of go through your phases and your emotions with working on what you're working on. So I truly, if I come off like I'm challenging you, or like I ain't gonna say challenge you, but I'm pushing you a little bit with what to do, it's because for me, a lot of my learning I kind of got on my own, and then other things I kind of had to implement and pick up, like as a play as you go, or pray as you go, however you want to term it. But I just wanted to leave that as my message for today, and just saying thank you. And I know there was a long spiel at the beginning about the history and what got us to where we are now and all that stuff, but if anything else, like, just know that you can do it by yourself, but you're gonna need help from people. And sometimes people who may not even be doing podcasting, or may not even be doing the things that you need, could give you advice and suggestions and recommendations that they may not have looked at. Because there was a point where, and if you listen to the podcast, I'll share this and then I'll be quiet about it. When I first was doing my podcast, as far as the format of talking about technology and talking about sports, I had it in reverse, even after I had went through the titling and the naming of past podcasts, where I was talking about the stuff first and then talking about the sports. When I realized that it's an easier transition to go into the sports information and then talk about stuff, strictly because not everybody's gonna listen to sports, and I get that. But if you wait through it and can get through it, speed listen, or whatever the case may be, I get into stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that I share that a lot of people do or do not know about, because I'm always doing research and I'm always learning as well. So just work through the process. That's just my advice and my words to you all. So on that note, again, thank you all, whether it's been a listen, a like, a download, a play, a share, a subscribe, a reference, a tip, anything that's been done towards helping the podcast grow the way it has is not unnoticed. And I'm saying that with all sincerity. Like, I bought this, I've told y'all this before. I went out, got this computer. A few months into owning it, one of the first things I'm doing, because I was trying to learn about it, was using Spreaker. And Spreaker for me then was a foreign language. Now I can sit, and it's almost as though I'm not really even acknowledging what I'm using, because now I have software that kind of just does everything, and I just have to go in and do my part to get it taken care of. So that's what I'm gonna leave with you all. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm gonna get this quick edit. I was ready to say this quick weave. Anybody who know me know I joke about hair all the time. It's all in fun. But I'm gonna get this quick listen done, break this all down, and until next time, in a few minutes, past podcasts of the past signing out. Peace. Another episode complete. Another show shared. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you checking out any current shows or previous episodes. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can look me up on the Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter under Past Podcasts. If you'd like to go to the website, it is available at pastpodcast.com, where you can listen to this episode as well as previous episodes. Until next time, y'all take it easy.